Ieradušies, kas nav nobijušies no Illuminati. Stādim priekšā Devlin, kurš mums ir viesis jau 3. reizi. Un stāstīšu šodien par netradicionālu teātru. Pirms tā mēs runājam par dažādām lietām, tur radio, DJ un tādā. Šobrīd Marks ir arī pieķēries mūzikas industrijai no citu rakursa. Tad došu vārdu, so I'll give you the word. Warm welcome for Mark Devlin. Applause.
As usual, I've got no idea what you just said, but I'm sure it was respectful anyway. Hi everyone, thanks for coming down here today. Appreciate you turning out. Hopefully it's going to be an interesting experience. It's actually the first presentation of this kind that I've done, so it's a new experience for me as well. I'm going to be talking all about the manipulations of the Illuminati music industry. So definitely interesting stuff, subject matter you don't normally hear talked about. So we'll see where it takes us. I've actually spoken here at the Institute, I think 3 times before, on a couple of occasions talking about my book, Tales from the Flip Side, and on another occasion I was talking about the music magazine that I run online called Black Sheep Mag, but today's slightly different. And one thing that I want to make clear at the outset is I'm well aware that all of you have aspirations to get involved in the music business as DJs, as producers, or in some other capacity. So what I'm talking about today is in no way intended to put you off from pursuing what you want to do. It's not intended to detract from you trying to get involved in the industry. What we're going to be talking about is the very upper levels of pretty much the US American industry, involving household name artists, the very biggest artists in the scene, and all this stuff pretty much happens at the upper echelons of the mainstream music business. So we're dealing with mainstream pop music and what passes these days for hip-hop and R&B, which is not my idea of hip-hop and R&B. But as far as electronic dance music, house music goes, from what I've gathered, there's not as much infiltration into those areas as the ones we're going to be talking about. And also, outside of the US, although there's minimal infiltration in markets like Latvia, United Kingdom and all the others, what we're dealing with here is pretty much limited to the US market. So what we're talking about should not put you off in any way from making a career in the industry. Just something to make clear. And it would probably help to put things into perspective before we go any further, just to give you a bit of background on myself and how I got to this stage and what I've done. So basically I've been a DJ, club and radio DJ, and a music writer for the past 22 years. Got started in 1990. And I'm known primarily for playing hip-hop. I play lots of different styles of music these days because, as I said, what passes for hip-hop don't impress me. But historically I've been a hip-hop DJ, and I've played all forms of black music, soul, funk, reggae, dancehall, R&B, that sort of thing. So I got started in 1990, right at the beginning of what was the best decade of them all, the 90s. The golden years, the golden period. If you speak to any hip-hop purist, any proper hip-hop head, they'll all tell you that the early part of the 90s was when hip-hop was at its best. Creative artists, incredible lyrical content, incredible production styles, it was all good. Actually everything was good about the 90s. The movies were good, house and dance music was good, indie music was good, everything was cool for the first part of the decade. So what I noticed was things just kind of ticked along nicely until 1997, which is a year that, when I look back, I can identify as a time when a lot of things started to change. So in 1997, it was a bit of a dark year in the UK, because in the UK we had this character, Blair, the mass-murdering war criminal Tony Blair. Says it all in his face, really. His eyes just so full of life and humanity. So Blair came to power in 97. The same year, Princess Diana was assassinated on the 31st of August. And in music, in 1997, it was the year when Notorious B.I.G., otherwise known as Biggie Smalls, was also assassinated, 6 months after Tupac. So we'll get into that a bit later as well. So I noticed that around about 97, the music was starting to change. And in hip hop specifically, you stopped getting all this incredible creative lyrical content, and instead you started to get artists just talking about materialistic things, brands, consumerism, gold chains, girls with big butts in the club, you know, all that sort of thing, that has actually pervaded ever since for the last 15 years. So fast forwarding again, this time to 2008, we're going on another 11 years from there. 2008 was another year that a lot of things started to change in music. It was the year Obama came to power, but I'm sure that's just a coincidence. And you had a new breed of artists coming through in the so-called hip-hop and R&B arena, because by this point, what had previously been hip-hop and R&B had become unrecognisable. We're talking the likes of Flo Rida, Akon, T-Pain, Lil Wayne, Lady Gaga, and then the year after them, Drake and Nicki Minaj. A different perception on what hip-hop is all about. But 2008 is when all of those artists came through. So again, to put things into context, in 2010, I personally underwent what I would refer to as a conscious awakening, which is where I started to understand and become aware of certain things in terms of what this world is really all about, what's going on, who's controlling things, what reality is, what we're doing here, and all the rest of it. And I got all of that from reading a lot of different authors and watching a lot of different videos on YouTube and just absorbing a lot of information. Pretty much it was down to reading the books of David Icke, who you may have heard about. He brought out his book in 2010 called Human Race Get Off Your Knees, which was a life-changing thing for me when I read it. And when I did, suddenly everything kind of clicked into place, and it's like a light bulb went off in my head, and so much started to make sense in terms of what's going on in the world. And another thing that put me onto all of that was actually a movie called Zeitgeist, which you may have heard of. It's online, you can watch it on YouTube. It's an incredible movie, it blows your mind, it changes your whole perception about life and reality. And I was put onto Zeitgeist by the DJ Danny Rampling, who you might have heard of. And it was actually in Riga, because this was a few years ago when I'd done a gig in Riga. Danny Rampling was on the bill as well. And we got stranded at the airport by Ryanair, because the Ryanair flight wouldn't take off. That's a surprise, isn't it, with Ryanair? And Danny Rampling mentioned this movie Zeitgeist to me. So that, in combination with certain books that I read, just allowed me to come to understand that in terms of the way this world is run, it's nothing like the version of events that you get on the mainstream news and which your government tells you. And it doesn't matter what country in the world you're in, it's the same situation. This is where we come to what a lot of people refer to as the Illuminati. It's a bit of a buzzword. It's often misunderstood, misrepresented, but have people heard about the Illuminati? Yeah? You heard the buzzword? Not everyone's heard about it. And it ties in with this grand plan known as the New World Order. In a nutshell, it turns out that governments don't run the world. There are a group of occult secret societies which are headed up by bloodline families that have been interbreeding over an incredibly long period of time, that have come to infiltrate pretty much every aspect of our daily lives. Some people refer to them as the Illuminati. That was actually an organisation that was officially founded in 1776 by a guy called Adam Weishaupt, and it was in conjunction with the House of Rothschild, which is one of the key bloodline networks in this group that we're talking about. And over the course of hundreds of years, what these bloodline families, in conjunction with various secret societies that they operate through, have done is to infiltrate and control pretty much every aspect of human life. And they've done it through the banking system, they've done it through education and the scientific establishment, they've done it through the military, and they've done it through corporations, and within that, they've done it big time through the entertainment industry, consisting mainly of Hollywood movies and the music industry. And because these characters are hell-bent on suppressing humanity and controlling us and getting us to live the kind of lives that suit them and to control everything that we do, they've hijacked and infiltrated any profession and any group that they feel can help them achieve their agenda. And so what we're going to talk about today is how they've done that through the music industry. So the first thing that I became aware of, and we're talking about 2010 here, so it's not long ago, it's only a couple of years that I've been on this path. But the first thing that I was alerted to was the symbolism that is cropping up all the time in music videos from the biggest artists out there. And I was put onto this to a very large extent by a website called Vigilant Citizen, which you might want to check out, vigilantcitizen.com. It's a guy in Canada who analyses the imagery and the symbols that appear in music videos and live stage shows and breaks down exactly what's going on. Because what we're dealing with here, with the Illuminati, if you want to call them that, this group of individuals that control things from behind the shadows, is a cult business, esoteric business. You know, they believe very much in the occult, and they believe very much in Satanism. And Satanism is not what you might necessarily think, so we'll get on to that in a while as well. But here's an example. How many times have you seen a music video or a promotional picture and the artist is covering their eye like this? There's Britney Spears doing it there. Here's a couple of pictures of Rihanna doing it, a couple of pictures of Lady Gaga. When you know what you're looking for, and when you start to look out for this stuff, you notice that it's going on everywhere. All these artists are covering one friggin' eye, whether it's with their hand, a hat tilted down, their hair over one eye. What's going on? Here's another one. That is a composite of just some of the artists that have been doing this over the years. And everybody's in there. Justin Bieber's in there. What's he doing? All your favourite artists are in there. And those that aren't your favourites as well. What they're actually symbolising with the covering of one eye is the all-seeing eye, which you will notice crops up. Let's just go to it. On the US dollar bill. I'll just close in on that a bit. This is the image that you get on the back of a $1 bill in the US. It's a pyramid with the capstone removed and an eye in the centre of the capstone. It's a classic Illuminati symbol. It represents this control structure, and the pyramid crops up so many times. It represents the capstone being the controllers that are making everything happen. And the further you go down the pyramid, layer by layer, you eventually get to the masses, the people, which is us, at the very bottom of the control system. The all-seeing eye is also symbolic of the third eye, the so-called third eye, which is a reference to the pineal gland, which is a part of the human brain, the very centre of the brain, part of the endocrine system. And the pineal gland is recognised as being the portal through which humans can access higher levels of consciousness beyond this physical five-sense reality that we find ourselves in, this apparently physical world. There's a lot more out there. The pineal gland is the way that you access higher levels of consciousness. So the controllers, the Illuminati, know this. This is the kind of knowledge that is passed on through secret societies such as the Freemasons, the Knights Templar, the Gnostics, those sort of organisations. And it's information which these individuals like to keep to themselves. The likes of us aren't supposed to know about it. But that's what this image symbolises. So going back to the videos, when you see these artists covering their eyes, they've been instructed to do that by their real controllers. by the people that are really calling the shots, which is the individuals that are running the corporations. And there's usually a number of reasons why the controllers do anything. There's usually 3 or 4 reasons for it. There's a main reason, and then there's some subsidiary reasons. One of the reasons they're getting artists to do this is kind of a way of them communicating who's in control, who's in charge, who's running things. They're letting you know who's boss. Also, symbols carry energy. Another thing which I've come to understand is that everything is energy, universal energy, vibrating at different frequencies. And if you understand what you're doing with symbols, you can actually manipulate the energy field around you and get certain situations to manifest. Kind of a deep subject, kind of complex. Lots of stuff to read on that, lots of YouTube videos on it, lots of articles online. Can't really go into it in too much detail here, but that's what's going on with these symbols. That's number one, anyway. Here we've got Rihanna doing something vaguely satanic. Here we've got Bono, good old Bono. Let's close in on that a bit. Not too fussy about the company he keeps, this fella. There he is with Blair, Clinton, Bush, Obama, and there he is covering his eye at the end, letting you know who owns him. So you can see we're dealing with some pretty big names here. Okay, so here's Jay-Z and Kanye West, and we get onto another symbol, which is the making of the sort of pyramid sign with the hands. So the cover story here is that what they're doing is making the rock sign, okay? Because Jay-Z's record label that he founded in 1996 with Damon Dash was called Rockefeller Records. And that is an allusion to the Rockefeller bloodline, the House of Rockefeller, which, like the Rothschilds, are one of the leading Illuminati families. Lots to find out about the Rockefellers, as there are the Rothschilds. Not very pleasant characters, and they don't have humanity's best interests at heart. So what's Jay-Z doing? Naming a record label after one of the leading Illuminati bloodlines, Rockefeller Records. But that's what this is designed to represent. There's his mate Kanye West doing it as well. You never used to see this sort of thing. You never used to see this in videos, but it's cropping up all the time now. And oh, there's Michael Jackson back in the day, which just goes to show how long this control of the industry has been going on. It's by no means a recent thing. What I'm focusing on mainly here is stuff that's happened in recent years, but the absolute control of all levels of the music industry and of the major artists has been going on a long time. So here's Michael Jackson as a kid being told to make this sign with his fingers, which is symbolising a 6. And it goes in conjunction with 2 other 6s to make 666, another classic satanic symbol. We'll get on to more about Michael Jackson later as well. This is a still from Rihanna's Umbrella video, which I was put onto again by Vigilant Citizen. And at first glance, it looks as if she's just bent over, striking this artistic pose. But when you examine it, the image has been manipulated with computer graphics, and it's physically impossible to achieve. You see her head's way down there, she's got something above her head, which is presumably her shoulders, but it's not. So the image has been manipulated to resemble this. And this is Baphomet, aka the Goat of Mendes. It's another classic symbol of Satanism. To many people it symbolises the devil. But when I talk about Satanism, I'm not coming at it from any kind of religious angle here. Okay, it's not Christianity or anything else. Most people's perception of Satan is that it's the devil, it's this demonic entity. But as far as the Illuminati and their belief system goes, Satanism is all about the veneration of the planet Saturn. And it's from Saturn that you get the name Satan. The Illuminati are very into the sun, moon, stars and planets. It's all part of their occult belief system. And Saturn plays a very major role in it. And so what they're doing is placing images in music videos that relate to Saturn, which is one of the entities that they worship. Okay, so this is Umbrella as well, Rihanna's video. It's another frame from it, just close in on that. And you see she's inside a pyramid again. Surprise, surprise. So there's another pyramid cropping up. And we go back to the pyramid on the dollar bill. And here we are with Jay-Z once again with his rock sign. And you see these same images cropping up time and time again, all over the place. And the agenda has really been stepped up in the last few years. I would take it back to around about 2007, 2008, as I said. Prior to that point, you didn't see so much of this. But something has been going on since sort of 4 or 5 years ago to indicate that they're really stepping up the game and they really want to put this stuff right in your face. So Jay-Z is the classic example of a stooge and a puppet of the industry. And this was very hard for me to come to terms with when I first became aware of it, because I was a big Jay-Z fan, you know. I love hip-hop. I think he's a very talented rapper. He's definitely got skills as a lyricist. And that's really why he was recruited, because that talent was recognised. Jay-Z just kind of, after years of struggling and getting nowhere, he just burst onto the scene in 1996 with a hit album, Reasonable Doubt, and almost overnight he became the biggest rapper out there. And it becomes clear that this sort of thing doesn't happen just through hard work and determination. You're not, you don't work your way up to these positions, you're selected to occupy them. And so that's what happened with Jay-Z. There's a clue in the name of Rockefeller Records, and of course that led on to the cover story of this rock sign, the triangular thing being flashed at concerts. It's a pyramid. There he is doing it at a concert. Where else have we seen pyramids recently, by the way? There's the Olympic Stadium in London, which was absolutely steeped in symbolism, if you know what you're looking for. They're not even trying to hide this one. Bloody great pyramids all the way around the outside with illuminated capstones, symbolising the knowledge, the occult knowledge, which is retained by the few at the very top of the power structure. So pyramids again. And here's a bunch of folks at a Jay-Z concert throwing up the rock sign upon instruction, which is what happens. You know, Jay will say, throw up your rocks, and everyone in the crowd makes the symbol with their fingers, not understanding the energetic power that this has. Everything is made up of energy. There's a great quote from the American comedian Bill Hicks, actually, who, very interesting guy, died at the very early age of 32, but his videos on YouTube are definitely worth watching. If I can remember the quote, he said, "All matter is energy condensed to a slow frequency of vibration," which pretty much puts it all into perspective. This is not stuff that the mainstream media ever tells you. It's not stuff your governments ever tell you. It's not stuff educational establishments ever tell you, universities, colleges. Because when you follow the power structure all the way up, it's the same forces that are controlling your mainstream news, your governments, the music industry, and all the rest of it. It's the pyramid structure again. You follow it all the way up to the capstone, that's where the real power is, and then the disinformation is fed all the way down. So these symbols do have an effect on the energy field around us, and it's a negative effect, and it's holding into place a version of reality that these controllers want us to live in. Again, it's a very complex subject, and I'm sorry I can't go into it in a lot of further detail, but there's much information out there if you decide you want to review it further. This guy is the head of the Rockefeller family network, the current head, David Rockefeller. So he's the guy effectively that Jay-Z named his record company after. Nice guy, isn't he? Good looking. Yeah, very pleasant. Nice eyes, full of life again. These buggers go on forever, by the way. You look at some of these key Illuminati figures like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the British royal family, by the way, are very much involved in this. How old are they? You know, the Queen of England is like 86, Prince Philip is in his 90s, this guy Rockefeller is in his 90s. You've got the Bush family, George Bush Sr. pushing 90. You've got Zbigniew Brzezinski, Henry Kissinger. These guys go on forever, man. They live to their 80s and 90s because they're not living the same lifestyles as us. But anyway, that's David Rockefeller, nice guy. So, yeah, just before we move on from Jay-Z, it became clear to me that, as I said, he was a very talented artist, and the control system saw a way in which he could be used to help carry on their agenda, because they completely own their artists. These music industry corporations, when an artist signs on the dotted line, they're giving themselves over entirely to the corporation, more so than they realise. And by the time they realise how deep they're in, they can't get out. There's only one way out, which is the Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston way out, which again we'll get on to. But yeah, Jay-Z has been an absolute puppet and stooge of the system since the very start, and it's in recent years that you've really started to see the extent to which he's controlled, because a lot of the symbolism and the imagery is cropping up in Jay-Z videos and Jay-Z stage shows. So a more recent recruit is Kanye West. And Kanye West, again, to me, started out as a great artist, very promising. He was making positive, very creative music that was different to anything else that was out there. His first album, The College Dropout, was classic material. And this continued for a few years, but there came a point where Kanye's music started to change. And if you listen to his rap flows now, they're nothing like what went before. And again, he's one of the main culprits for having all this occult symbology placed in his videos. This is him on a US telethon in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. I think it was 2005. He appeared live with Mike Myers, the actor, and they were doing this fundraising telethon. And off the cuff, unscripted, Kanye said, George Bush doesn't care about black people. I would personally remove the word black, but yeah, I see the point. And obviously this didn't go down too well. And it seems to me that very soon after that point, Kanye's music started to change. And you almost get the impression that he was kind of told to take his music in a different direction as a kind of punishment for making this comment, because it was unscripted, it shouldn't have been said. You then had the incidents where Kanye West went up on stage at, was it the Grammys or the VMA Awards, where Taylor Swift got the award, and Kanye West jumped up on stage and said it should have gone to Beyonce. And he was then branded a jackass publicly by Obama. So humiliation, more public embarrassment, all seems to have been part of the plan. This is what Kanye is doing now. This is the sort of thing he's up to. This is the video for Power. His track Power. Anyone seen the video? It's one continuous image, basically. The video starts with a close-up of the image, and throughout the 3 minutes or so, the camera very slowly pans out and you get to see more and more of the image. And this is some disturbing business. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can interpret the symbols that are in it, but do you remember seeing this sort of thing in videos before 5 years ago? I don't. I remember seeing artists having fun, you know, in the club, doing something appropriate to the music. This kind of imagery bears no relation to the song, and is actually quite dark and disturbing. It ends with these two characters bringing down their swords, and Kanye's about to be beheaded, and at that point the video ends. So this is some dark stuff. What is going on? Yeah, one of my favourites, will.i.am. Got lots of other names for him actually. Shil.I.am is one. There's some impolite ones as well. But this guy started out as the front man of the Black Eyed Peas in the late 90s, making real hip hop, proper hip hop music, party joints, you know, good music. His music also started to change sometime around the mid-2000s, and I'm sure you're all aware of the sort of stuff that this guy makes now, you know, the Time, the Dirty Bit, and all this other absolute garbage, mind-poisoning shite. That's what he's into now. So it's pretty obvious that he's been got to as well, but he's one of the key characters. What they're doing is mind-controlling an entire generation of young people through music, and they've decided who the key players are going to be in the US industry. All these characters we're dealing with here. Okay, so we're moving on to the next aspect of how music is used for control. And we get into a very dark and disturbing area. If you thought the last one was, well, we've stepped it up a notch now. We're talking mind-controlled artists. Something which I became aware of was a program of trauma-based mind control, which goes by the name of MK Ultra, and it's also known as monarch programming. And it's a technique that was developed during the Second World War by the Nazis, and they experimented on some of the inmates of the concentration camps to get the technique up to scratch. After the Second World War, many of these Nazi scientists were covertly flown to the US, where they continued their work for various factions of the CIA on behalf of the US government. And what they were doing was developing this method of completely controlling a person's mind and then reprogramming them to get them to do whatever suits your agenda. MK Ultra, by the way, stands for mind control in the German. The German word starts with a K, so that's where the MK comes from. Monarch programming is named after the monarch butterfly, and the symbolism there seems to be as butterflies change from cocoons into a butterfly, they undergo that metamorphosis, that transformation, that kind of symbolises the mind control process. So their interest in having mind control subjects was for various uses. One was for Manchurian candidate style assassins. Might be something you've heard of. They can program someone to carry out a mission as an assassin, but because their mind has been so messed with, they have no idea that that's what they've been programmed to do. And after they've done it, they have no memory of what's happened because their mind is completely wiped clean. It's called trauma-based mind control because it's just that. The subjects undergo absolutely horrific stuff. It might be watching somebody being killed in front of them. It might be being raped. Electroshock therapy, so-called therapy, is used a lot, where they're electrocuted with cattle prods and taser guns and such, and drugs are used as well. And the whole experience is so traumatic and so horrific for the subject that it causes the mind to dissociate from reality, and it shatters into different compartments as the only way of dealing with this horrific experience. And once that's done, what these handlers do is program these different compartments of the mind, which are known as alters, which is where alter ego comes from, and they program them in various ways to get the subject to do whatever is on their agenda. So as far as music artists go, many of the very top names in the mainstream music business, there is evidence to suggest that they've undergone trauma-based mind control so that their mind is no longer their own. That way, they're susceptible to programming, and they're more susceptible to doing whatever they're told to do as part of the agenda of brainwashing and controlling the public. So you have mind-controlled artists whose mission is to mind control the masses, the people, through their music and through their images. There's a great work on all of this by an author called Fritz Springmeier. Just trying to find the name of the book. Yeah. The Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable, total mind-controlled slave by Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. That's like the definitive work on what MK Ultra involves. There's also a great book called Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien, and she was a former mind-controlled slave. She's actually gone through this, and she's spoken publicly about it, and she's written a book, and she's one of the leading kind of authorities on what it involves because she's been there. But the Fritz Springmeier book is a great reference point. And in it, and in other places, you'll find that there are many visual indicators that symbolize mind control. One of them is pink hair. Whenever you see an artist in a video these days, because they're getting more blatant, with pink hair, it's almost certainly symbolizing the fact that that artist is under mind control. Here we've got Katy Perry in a classic mind control victim sort of image. And here's Lady Gaga doing the old eye thing again. Lady Gaga, by the way, it's all in the name, which is not by accident. Lady Gaga, almost certainly a mind control victim to the point that her mind is not her own. And she's absolutely controlled and told what to do. People say, oh, she's so creative, you know, she's so independent, she's so individual. Well, only to the extent that her control allows her to be. She's not expressing herself personally. What the industry doesn't want is maverick, independent artists going out there and expressing themselves in their own way. They want artists that do what they're told and that follow orders, which is why so many of them now are mind controlled. And here we have the classic textbook example of an MK Ultra mind controlled artist. You don't get a better example than Nicki Minaj. Pink hair. Another classic symbol of mind control is dolls, mannequins, and particularly dolls with mutilated limbs. When you start to look at some of these music videos, you find images of dolls, and particularly dolls with broken arms, broken legs, broken limbs, cropping up time and time again. The doll symbolises the mind-controlled artist absolutely at the control and the mercy of the handler. And the broken limb symbolises the broken mind, the fact that they're no longer in control of their minds. So Nicki Minaj is presented as a rapper, a hip-hop artist. And you listen to her stuff, it bears absolutely no resemblance to anything that went before. It's nothing to do with hip-hop. She's an absolute artificial creation of the industry, passed off as an exciting, independent new artist. Here's another picture of Nicki Minaj from a video that came out recently with B.O.B. and it's called Out of My Mind. And here she is in a straitjacket in a mental institution with pink hair, with all kinds of Illuminati symbols scribbled on the wall behind her. You know, they're not even trying to hide it anymore. The song is called Out of My Mind. And, you know, so many other examples of it. A lot of these artists, you may have noticed, have alter egos these days. It's become fashionable for artists in the hip-hop and R&B fields to have more than one name, different identities. So, for instance, Beyonce, a few years ago, brought out an album called I Am Sasha Fierce. And she explained in interviews that Sasha Fierce was like this alternative persona, this alter ego of hers. When she gets on stage, she said, she feels like somebody else. She feels like she's taken over and she's no longer in control. This character, Sasha Fierce, is in control. Classic reference to mind control. Then you have Eminem, that's always been known as Slim Shady, as an alternative name. Jay-Z has various ones, you know, Jehovah is one. When it comes to Nicki Minaj, her nickname is Barbie Doll. There you go, doll again. Her fans, her female fans, are referred to as Barbs, so she'll shout out all my Barbs, and the male fans are called Kens. So they're even involving the audience in this. Lady Gaga has alter egos as well. She often appears on stage dressed as a man in a male suit. and her fans are called Little Monsters. That's more appropriate than you might think. And again, going back to Nicki Minaj, another of her alter egos is Roman. She had a track on her last album called Roman's Revenge. She's explained in interviews that she has this alter ego known as Roman Zelensky, which is a reference to the film director Roman Polanski, who directed Rosemary's Baby, which is definitely worth looking into. And he was also involved in the Charles Manson murders. His wife Sharon Tate was killed by the Manson cult in the late 60s. So he's an interesting fella. But yeah, Roman Zelensky is one of her alter egos. And in interviews and on track, you'll find that Nicki Minaj sometimes goes into different voices. She becomes Roman, this male persona. Another thing she does is she takes on an English accent, which a lot of people think is cute, and you know, all her fans think it's really clever. But she starts talking in an English accent. Why? Because she's not in control of her mind. One of these alters is starting to break through. And what you find from time to time is the programming starts to wear off. It doesn't always last. And when the programming starts to wear off, you get artists doing very strange things. Britney Spears, for instance, a few years ago, went into a salon, asked for all her hair to be shaved off. People couldn't understand what was going on, but it's a classic sign of the programming wearing off and Britney needing to be taken in and reprogrammed. A few years ago again, you had Mariah Carey going off the rails and attempting suicide. Classic sign of programming wearing off. Just this week, there's been this story of Chris Brown, the media are still talking about Chris Brown beating up Rihanna. It happened in 2009. Personally, I think it's time to move on, but you know, the media won't let it go. And there's been so much made of it. Chris Brown got a new tattoo this week on his neck, and it appears to be a woman with a bruised, beaten face. And people are saying it's a tattoo of Rihanna. You know, he's learnt nothing these 3 years. He's still flaunting it. Well, again, you know, this erratic, unpredictable behaviour, artists doing strange things. We've seen it for years and years and years. Now we can start to understand why they do it, because the bloody programming is wearing off. Another classic sign of mind control, Mickey Mouse ears. Might sound ridiculous, but it ties into the Disney Corporation. The Disney Corporation there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's satanic in nature, it's evil in nature, and its mission is to corrupt kids and young people, subliminally, with symbolism, without them realising what's going on. And so whenever you see an artist with Mickey Mouse ears, it's a sign of mind control, and it's a connection to the whole Disney network. You might be aware of an organisation called the Mickey Mouse Club, which was the breeding ground for Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, and Christina Aguilera. They all happened to go to this particular group, and they all went on to be highly successful pop artists, but at what price? So Mickey Mouse ears. Now, we're mainly talking about American artists here, but here's one British artist, the main one that I've identified as probably being a part of all of this, Jessie J, with Mickey Mouse ears. Kind of a lone British character among all the Americans. But there she is still. Here's Mariah Carey with a butterfly. She actually brought out a record called Butterfly as well. This is the Monarch Butterfly, which again symbolises Monarch programming, MK Ultra mind control. This is Mariah Carey's pregnant stomach. Before she had twins, she had a butterfly painted onto her stomach. What's going on? And here's the Monarch Butterfly again. That's the classic sign. You look at videos, you look at press shots, record sleeves, you see this butterfly cropping up time and time again. So people might say, well, it's just a coincidence. It's just a way to look cool, you know, it's just an image, it means nothing. Well, if that's the case, why are these same images cropping up time and time again in videos and everywhere else? It's the same with the covering of one eye. In defence, a lot of people say, well, it's just a way to look cool. You know, it's a cool press shot. It's fashionable. It may well be, but everyone's doing it, as we saw from that picture before. When everyone's doing it, it's no longer just one of those things. It goes beyond the realms of coincidence, and you have to ask yourself what's going on, and you have to be prepared to, you know, go to some different areas to get the answer. So this is Sasha Fierce, Beyonce's alter ego that she says takes her over when she's on stage. Here's Madonna. It becomes clear that one of the artists that's been in the game and under the absolute control of the industry for a very long time is Madonna. Here's a still from Desperately Seeking Susan, 1985. On the back of her jacket, you see a pyramid with a capstone removed with an all-seeing eye in the middle of it. And more recently, Madonna seems to have been elevated to some sort of high priestess status within the industry, where she's kind of bringing through new artists and inducting them into the system. So you have the situation where she was on stage with Britney Spears and the famous Kiss. You know, that seems to have been some sort of induction process to bring Britney into the industry. And you had Madonna's performance at the US Super Bowl halftime in February this year, which was absolutely loaded with satanic occult imagery, if you know what you're looking for. Loads of articles about that break it all down. But Madonna, definitely a major player, probably a very early mind control subject as well. And it's easy to hate on these artists. It's easy to look at artists like Nicki Minaj and all the others with all the garbage music that they're playing now, that they're making now, which bears no resemblance to anything that went before, and just, you know, not want to have anything to do with it. But when you look at what MK Ultra mind control really involves, really you should have absolute empathy for anyone that's gone through it, because it ain't pleasant. That's the agenda. It goes on in Hollywood too. Hollywood movies are loaded with the same kind of subliminal imagery for the same reasons, to implant an idea or an image in the mind of the viewer subconsciously, below the threshold of the conscious mind, so you're not aware that it's going on, but nevertheless it implants itself into your mind. So again, this ties into the whole idea of a new world order, similar to what George Orwell outlined in his book 1984. And again, it's another very broad subject area which you can read about, which we don't have time to go into today. But my view is that auto-tune, there's far more to it than meets the eye. That's why it's still around. So I think that there's more to see with regards to that. So it becomes clear, before we move on, there's another aspect to predictive programming to touch on. So the technique of placing images hidden in Hollywood films or music videos or whatever to have an effect on the viewer without them realizing what's going on, and when it references an event which is yet to come, such as those 9/11 images, is known as predictive programming. And it becomes clear that this has been going on a lot over the years in the music industry. Here's the sleeve to Michael Jackson's Blood on the Dance Floor. In the background you see a city seemingly disappearing into dust, being destroyed. Those skyscrapers, to me, look a lot like Manhattan. And this seems to be a foreshadowing of what was going to happen on 9/11 4 years before, because this came out in 1997. He's also on a checkerboard floor, which ties into Freemasonry. It's another classic Freemasonic occult image. But there you go, a classic piece of predictive programming. Here's another. This is a still from a video by Lil Wayne, another of these new breed of garbage artists that's been brought through in recent years. And it's for a song called My Home Is Still. Came out in July, and it came out, I think it was 3 days before the shooting in Aurora, Colorado, in the movie theatre, the Batman shooting, where 12 people were shot in the movie theatre. In this video, at the end of it, Wayne is seen in a movie theatre surrounded by 12 skeletons. Just a coincidence? Probably not. Directly before the Colorado shooting, you get this in a music video. To me, can't be coincidence. Another classic sign of predictive programming. And so you wonder how complicit these artists are in what's going on. Did Lil Wayne even know that those images are going to be placed in his video? Probably not. The artists are so controlled once they cross that line that they have to do anything that they're told to do. So if he's told to dance around in a studio setting and that they're going to strip in some images later, he's got no control over it. And then when the video comes out, there's 12 bloody skeletons there. You know, but these artists have no control over it. Once you're in the industry, you can't get out. So they take artists like, for example, Jay-Z, who is well known that he came from poverty, as most rappers do, you know, came from the hood, had no money, he was broke, he wanted to make it in the game, as they all do. And so once they've identified a talent, what the controllers do is make them an offer that they really can't refuse. You know, you cross over and you come with us and you do what we say, you'll have fame and fortune and riches for the rest of your life, you'll never be poor again. Imagine how attractive a prospect that is when you've never had money. So that's how they get them. Bring them in. Unfortunately, once they're in, they start to realise very quickly that they can't get out. There have been various examples of artists who have tried to get out. A recent one is Lauryn Hill, formerly of the Fugees. She's been out of the limelight for a long time, but a few years ago she tried to break away from the control of the Illuminati music industry. Recently she's been in the headlines for having tax bill problems. It suddenly emerged that she owes millions to the IRS in back tax. Just a coincidence, or is this something that's been engineered in exchange for her speaking out and trying to get out of the industry? She put out a song called I Get Out, by the way, a few years ago, which was talking all about that. DMX, the rapper, it is reported, has tried to break free from the industry. He's tried to alert people as to what's going on. DMX has been in and out of jail over the years on some trumped-up charge or other. Marijuana found in his car, you know, speeding, whatever. Any old excuse. They don't like artists that try and speak out. Eminem was off the scene for a number of years. He, again, apparently tried to alert people to what was going on, tried to get out of the industry. Before you know it, he's got an addiction to sleeping pills, and he's going in and out of rehab. And of course, the ultimate is Michael Jackson. And there's far more to Michael Jackson's death than meets the eye. Michael Jackson made a famous speech a few years ago about the Sony Corporation. And he actually publicly referred to them as evil. And he referred to Tommy Mottola, who was a one-time husband of Mariah Carey, and some people say was her handler, her mind-controlled handler, but he was the CEO of the Sony Corporation, referred to him as a devil. You know, when you publicly stand up and refer to the CEO of a corporation as a devil, you probably ain't going to last very long. And like everyone else, when Michael Jackson first started having his troubles over the child molestation charges, didn't know any better then, so I, you know, went along with public opinion, and I was like, yeah, Michael Jackson's a pedo, man, you know, he's a pervert, because that's what they want you to think. And then, of course, when the first set of charges didn't bring him down, a new set of charges emerged, you know, it came out all over again. But it's clear to me now that these charges were trumped up, artificially created by the system to bring Michael Jackson down and to prevent him from feeling compelled to speak out anymore about what goes on in the industry. And then he started making tracks like They Don't Care About Us, They Don't Really Care About Us. And you look at the lyrics of that track, and it's pretty clear what he's trying to communicate. He's telling you that the Illuminati forces control the industry. And he's telling you that they don't care about you any more than they care about him. So he was not going to be allowed to continue making music like that for very much longer. And then, of course, in 2009, he announced that he was doing these shows in London. And It's my view that the industry controllers did not want him having a public profile at that time because they were too afraid of what he might try and put out there, and so he had to be taken out. And that's why I say the Michael Jackson route is often your only way of leading the industry, or the Whitney Houston route, which is another story. Okay, so if you thought mind-controlled artists, predictive programming videos was far out and was too much to take on, wait till we get into the next one. We're talking the ritual sacrifice of artists by the industry. Now, this is where a lot of people leave the picture. You know, they might have taken on board all the stuff that I've spoken about too far, but when you suggest that the music industry might actually be deliberately killing its own artists, it's too much for a lot of people. But there's a lot of evidence out there to suggest that this is going on, and that it's been going on for quite some time. Again, loads of videos on YouTube, loads of articles about it. One of the most famous proponents of this idea is Professor Griff, who was formerly with the group Public Enemy, Minister of Information for Public Enemy. He was sacked many years ago, but apparently he's rejoined Public Enemy now. But he, in recent years, has put forward this theory that the artists, certain artists, have been ritually sacrificed by the industry. The current spate seems to have started with Tupac, who was assassinated 16 years ago yesterday. Yesterday was the anniversary, 13th of September. Then 6 months later, as I mentioned earlier, you had Notorious B.I.G. Biggie, March 97, shot up in a car in exactly the same circumstances as Tupac. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it a little strange that 15, 16 years on, still nobody has been charged with either of those murders. You've had all kinds of stories about, oh, the LAPD was involved and Puff Daddy might have had something to do with it and Suge Knight, but there's been no charges. Can you imagine if instead of Biggie and Tupac being shot, it was Bruce Springsteen and Elton John? I don't think 15, 16 years later, people will be saying, oh, who shot Elton John? Oh, we don't know. I think probably they'd have found someone for that. But Tupac and Biggie, no. And then you look over the years at all the other hip-hop and R&B artists that just happen to have died in strange circumstances. You've got Aaliyah in 2001, Lisa Left Eye, but it's dressed up to be other things. It's a very important part of how they operate. Remember, it's all about occultism, satanic occultism and the esoteric. And it's an important part of their agenda to be assassinating, ritually sacrificing people. And it suits them to have some of these artists bumped off. So there's all kinds of inconsistencies in the official stories about how some of these artists came to die. And again, it's something you can look into, but it ties into this whole idea of these secret societies having absolute control over the industry. More questions than answers in all cases. You might also have heard of the 27 Club. There's a very unusual number of artists who over the years just happen to have died at the age of 27. Most recently was Amy Winehouse. But going way back, you've got people like Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones, Kurt Cobain, the list goes on and on and on. And another thing that's important to these occult secret societies is numerology, the way that numbers tie in with energy and the structure of the universe. And for some reason, 27 seems to be an important number to them. And it suits them to have artists dying at the age of 27. So there's hip-hop heaven with a lot of these characters. Okay, something else is sound frequencies. The frequencies at which music is created, produced in the studio. Probably a lot of you know more about this than me, because I've never produced music, but I've come to understand that there are certain frequencies which are harmonious with the human brain, and which, when you're listening to sound recorded at these frequencies, it resonates with you in a very positive kind of way. It taps into your consciousness, it makes you feel good. And of course there's the opposite of that. There are sound frequencies which interact with the human brain in a very negative and destructive way. And without you realising it, again, subliminally, it's messing with your mind and it's making you feel a certain way. And it's making you feel negative and not whole and not at peace with yourself, at rest with yourself. And there's evidence to suggest that a lot of music now is being recorded at those frequencies. The standard tuning pitch, I'm told, for all recorded music now is 440 hertz. And long ago, many decades ago, it used to be 432 hertz, which is said to be a very harmonic, positive frequency that resonates with, you know, the human mind in the way I just said. But 440 has the opposite effect. And the Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels realised that when Nazi troops were subjected to music that was recorded at 440 hertz, it tended to bring about a very aggressive, very tense state in them. And it could be used for propaganda purposes and for programming purposes. And so it was adopted as the standard tuning pitch for all recorded music from that point on. And that's what we have now. So it's another aspect of it. So what you're dealing with is the conditioning of an entire generation by means of music. You know, I've been around long enough and I'm old enough to remember better days, better years, better times. Although the industry has always been controlled, it's only in recent years that they've really stepped up the game using all these methods in a major way. And they've recognised there's a whole generation of young people now that are getting into music, getting interested in artists, and if they can get them from day one and get inside their minds and get them listening to certain types of music and get them appreciating certain types of artists, by the time that generation moves through into adulthood, you've got an entire global population that has been conditioned and programmed in a certain way. And that's what I think they're doing. And this is something that comes to light in my gigs when I'm DJing. It used to be the case, going back 15 years or more, that people would go out to a club and they would appreciate the DJ giving them sounds they'd never heard before. They would let the DJ do their thing and they would discover new sounds and new music, and it would be an exciting process. Now, in a club, as Ivor will confirm and any number of other DJs, there's only certain artists that people want to hear. And it's the artists that they've been told they want to hear. They're not thinking for themselves. You get girls coming up to you saying, have you got any Rihanna? And you can say to them, well, you know, what else do you want to hear besides Rihanna? Oh, I don't know, just Rihanna really. And, you know, it's all Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Chris Brown, Flo Rida, Pitbull, David Guetta, these same artists that people want to hear time and time again, and anything that falls outside of that, they're not interested in. And so interestingly, the very artists that people only seem interested in hearing about are the ones that have all this stuff in their videos and are covering their eyes and are making pyramid signs and all the rest of it. So I'd say they've done a pretty good job of conditioning a whole generation to not think for themselves, but to respond to subliminal programming that's taken place without them even realising it's going on. So, given all of that, you might find yourself feeling pretty down about things. You know, there's not much positive in all of that. When you start talking about, you know, ritual sacrifices and satanic imagery being placed in videos, it's not great, is it, really? But there has to be a positive outlook to all of this. Because if all we're going to do is say, the music industry is fucking with us, the Illuminati is controlling every aspect of our lives, they don't want what's best for us. Again, a very deep subject, can't go into it here, but you know, you might like to look into it. Then you can get pretty down about it all. there has to be a positive outlook, and as far as I'm concerned, there is. The first step towards it is, of course, just awareness that it's going on. Who, without having it pointed out to them, would realise, watching a Rihanna video, that there's satanic images in there? You know, so being aware of it is the first stage. And the more awareness there is out there, the less the control system is going to be able to get away with all these old tricks that they've been doing for so long and having their way. And of course, not all music is shite. You know, the stuff you hear on the radio and the stuff you get in bars and clubs now and on MTV is shite, because it's supposed to be. But there's still a great number of positive, independent, inspirational artists making music from the heart, expressing themselves creatively. Not the sort of thing you hear on the radio, but it's definitely out there. And I've started showcasing some of this in some of my podcasts. When it comes to hip-hop specifically, there's a lot of artists that know what's going on. You know, there's a lot in the sort of conspiracy field that will tell you all about the New World Order, the Illuminati, Freemasons, and all the rest of it. Low-key, Immortal Technique, Public Enemy even, Dead Prez, talk about all that stuff. But there's also artists that talk about human consciousness, the true nature of reality, energy and the way it manifests, because it does all tie in to a big picture, a massive picture. And when you start to join the dots, you can see how it all ties together. You know, there's reasons why it's so important to these controllers to be doing all this shit. And it's because they understand what reality is, they understand what consciousness is, they understand who and what we really are, and it all ties in. There's a lot of artists that understand that, and they're making great music about it. And it's my hope that as their cover gets blown more and more, it's going to put an end to all this crap music that we have to put up with, and allow some of this better, more positive stuff to come through. And you've just got to stay positive generally, really, because it's all about vibrational frequencies of energy. As I said earlier, there's negative energy, and when you get caught up in low density, negative vibrations, your life ain't good. But you can raise your human consciousness and access higher levels of personal vibration, and that's what we need to do, and it can be done. So, you know, I want to end on a positive note, because people are becoming aware of this. It's not as easy to fool people as it used to be, and we can overthrow all of this, and we're going to. It just takes, really it takes people throwing aside predetermined belief systems. You've got to come to this with an open mind, because if you've got a belief system to defend, you're not going to be free to go wherever the information and the truth takes you. You know, if you've got ties to a particular political party, you're not going to want to hear anything that goes against what that party says. Same with religion, same with any kind of cultural belief that you've got. But if you approach all this with an open mind, and you're prepared to go where it takes you, it opens up all kinds of doors to all kinds of new information. I really hope that makes some sense. As I said at the start, I wish you all the best in getting involved in the industry and whatever you want to do. I don't think you're going to come face to face with all this stuff that we're talking about, because again, this is Rihanna and Jay-Z territory. It's not the territory that you're going to find yourselves in. But it is something to be aware of, and hopefully it resonates with you in some way. So that's it really, other than to mention my SoundCloud page, because all my podcasts are hosted on the SoundCloud page. I've got a load of music up there, you know, positive, empowering music in podcasts. And also I've got some interviews that are relevant to this subject matter. My SoundCloud page is soundcloud.com/Mark-Devlin. If you can't remember that, just go to my main website, which is markdevlin.co.uk, and there's a link there to the SoundCloud. So that's pretty much it. What I do want to do though is just open up to any questions. If anyone's got any questions or anything that they want clarified in terms of what's been covered, I just want to give an opportunity for that. So. I'm not a nutter really. No? Okay. Then thanks for coming down. Hope it all made sense. Best of luck with everything. I'm DJing in Oak Grade tonight, if anyone's out of town, at Club Bearmans, but other than that, thanks a lot. See ya.
Well, that's it.